Hey, how are you? Today we're going to be doing the second part of ancient China, the Silk Road. There is a worksheet on the LMS that you should have. If you don't have it, go get it. Pause this, whatever. Bring your other computer. However that you take a picture. I don't know. However you do it, get the worksheet, bring it here, and here we go. I really could have included the Silk Road in almost any portion of the units that we were doing, almost any of them. But I included it in China because it really opened Chinese markets to the outside world for the very, very first time. Whereas some of the smaller and closer countries had bought and sold, as we've examined, with each other for a long time. But this really opened them up to the outside world. So let's first, before we do anything, let's first define the Silk Road. The Silk Road is a connection and network of roads and routes on which merchants carried goods for trade. In other words, people traveled on this to sell and buy things from other people from around the known world. There were two halves of it, really. The first half that connected Central Asia to China, and the other half that connected the Eastern Mediterranean to Central Asia. Now, while that picture makes it look like there was only one road, there was, of course, not. It was a network of roads. We've had that word before. If you don't remember it, look it up. A network of roads and routes to sell and buy and travel all over Asia, Europe, and into China. Now, this was really, in my opinion, and in many people's opinions, the beginning of globalization, which is a term that we throw around quite a bit, but let's get that definition. Can you see it? Okay. Globalization is the process that allows countries and their economies to work internationally. It is what we have today, although what we have is on a much, much bigger scale than the Silk Road allowed for back then. But the same things are true. Globalization allows for merchants to get rich, like I mentioned in the last video, and it spreads goods and ideas and technology and, yes, disease. But let's get back to the ancient world and talk not only about the beginnings of globalization, but also cultural exchange and diffusion. Here we go. Let's define cultural exchange first. Here we go. Cultural exchange is adopting beliefs, ideas, etc. from another culture. Think about that for a minute. When do we ever have cultural exchange? When does that ever happen? Well, let me help you out with that. When was the last time you had Indian food? Chinese food? Mexican food? When did you go to a friend's religious service that wasn't your same religion or brought a friend to yours? Have you ever worn a beret? Some of you may have. How about a pair of flip-flops? A lot of you may have. Have you ever said adios or hasta la vista when you left a room? Let's flip this around. What if we see a Russian woman in Russia wearing a pair of Levi's? Or a I don't know, a Japanese man wearing an NBA jersey, eating a Big Mac while watching Full House on TV? Yeah, cultural exchange. We do it all the time. But this was a new concept back in the day. This was a new thing when the Silk Road opened up. Suddenly, cultures who'd never experienced anything from any other culture could now experience a lot of things. Foods and ideas and religions and clothing and different technologies. And even after kind of books became a thing, even the writings, kind of interesting. What the Silk Road did was diffuse this cultural exchange. Let's define diffusion. Diffusion is the spreading out of something more widely. Now, easy way to think about this is think about spreading grass seeds if you've ever had to do that or something. And you don't just plop it down in one spot. You spread it out. You diffuse it, right? That's really not a great definition, but it might give you a good little mental image. So let's put these two things together in the context of the Silk Road. The Silk Road allowed for cultural exchange to happen. The Silk Road allowed for the cultural exchange to happen. It just did. It sold and bought a lot of stuff and exposed a lot of people to a lot of different things, and that is cultural exchange. Beliefs, ideas, technology, religion, many other things were diffused from one culture into many others. I'm going to read you a little excerpt from the National Geographic. The Silk Road extended approximately 6,437 kilometers, which is roughly 4,000 miles, across some of the world's most formidable landscapes, including the Gobi Desert and the Pamir Mountains. With no one government to provide upkeep, the roads were typically in poor condition. Robbers were common. To protect themselves, traders joined together in caravans with camels or other pack animals. Over time, large inns called caravanserai opened up to house traveling merchants. Few people traveled the entire route, giving rise to a host of middlemen and trading posts along the way. So, in other words, let me interrupt this for a second. In other words, if you were a merchant in China and you wanted to sell your stuff to Rome, you probably didn't make your way all the way to Rome. You made your way halfway or maybe 2/3 of the way, sold it to some other guy who was going to go to Rome, and then he would pay you, and then when he went to Rome, he would sell your goods in Rome and make his money that way. So it was very rare that they went all the way across. It was pretty unusual. An abundance of goods traveled along the Silk Road. Merchants carried silk from China to Europe, that's why it's called the Silk Road, where it dressed royalty and wealthy patrons. Other favorite commodities from Asia included jade and other precious stones, porcelain, tea, and spices. In exchange, horses, glassware, textiles, which are fabrics, and manufactured goods traveled eastward. So this is why archaeologists in ancient Rome find, for example, fine pottery and textiles that come from Asia, or why Roman glassware or other things can be found in Asia. Okay, so now your job is to do this, to finish your worksheet and then watch the TED Ed, and I'm going to put the link somewhere right in here, somewhere in a few minutes. And I'll also put that link on the LMS in case this one doesn't work. You're going to watch the TED Ed, and it's going to be a big part of the assignment that we do next. So make sure that you watch it, and I'll see you soon. Be good, behave, wash your hands. Talk to you later. Bye.